Salt, this common substance that graces our tables, holds profound secrets that our ancestors understood deeply. The crystalline structure of salt contains an inherent ability to absorb and transmute energies that surround us, making it one of the most powerful purification tools available to humanity since time immemorial. When we speak of purification, we must understand that existence operates on multiple planes simultaneously. The physical body that you inhabit is merely the densest manifestation of your being, surrounded by layers of subtle energetic fields that interact constantly with the environment. Salt, in its humble form, works across these dimensions with remarkable efficiency. The physical purification properties of salt have been recognized across civilizations. Ancient healers understood that salt baths draw toxins from the physical body through the skin, our largest organ of elimination. The osmotic pressure created by salt in water pulls impurities from deep within tissues, allowing them to be released into the bathwater. This is not merely a physical process, but one that operates on vibrational principles as well. Consider how salt water, whether in ocean waves or in your bath, carries a distinct energetic signature that can be felt immediately upon contact. This sensation is the active principle of salt working to rebalance your electromagnetic field. The sodium and chloride ions create an ionic exchange that neutralizes disharmonious energies that have attached to your energetic body. In the teachings of Cayce, we find references to salt as a natural conduit for life force. His readings frequently recommended salt baths for those suffering not just from physical ailments, but from energetic depletion and spiritual disconnection. The crystalline matrix of salt serves as both receiver and transmitter of subtle energies, making it an ideal medium for purification work. When using salt for purification, intention amplifies its natural properties. A handful of sea salt dissolved in water with conscious intent becomes a powerful tool for cleansing. This is why salt has been incorporated into purification rituals across spiritual traditions, from Catholic holy water to Hindu cleansing ceremonies. For environmental purification, salt works on similar principles. When placed in corners of a living space or dissolved and sprayed as a solution, salt absorbs discordant energies that accumulate in locations. These energetic residues, from arguments, illness, or even persistent negative thoughts, can linger in spaces, affecting all who enter. Salt neutralizes these impressions, returning the space to energetic neutrality. The process works through salt's crystalline structure, which has an ordered geometric pattern at the molecular level. This orderliness creates a harmonizing effect on chaotic energies, similar to how a tuning fork might bring discordant sounds into harmony through resonance. The salt doesn't simply mask these energies, but transmutes them, changing their fundamental vibrational signature. Those sensitive to energies often report feeling an immediate lightness after salt purification. This sensation is not psychological, but a genuine perception of the energetic shift that has occurred. The heavy, dense energies that previously occupied the space have been neutralized, allowing for clearer thought, easier breathing, and a renewed sense of vitality. Salt's purification extends beyond the seen world. In many traditions, it is understood that salt creates a boundary that certain lower vibrational entities cannot cross. This protective quality makes salt particularly valuable during times of spiritual work or healing, when one's energetic boundaries may be more permeable than usual. Throughout human history, salt has been revered not only for its purifying qualities, but also for its profound ability to shield against what many traditions call the unseen. This protective aspect of salt emerges from its fundamental nature, a substance that creates boundaries and establishes sacred space in the midst of chaotic energetic influences. The ancient understanding of protection differs significantly from modern perspectives. While today we might think of protection in physical terms, our ancestors recognized that the most significant threats often came from subtle realms, energetic influences that could affect consciousness, vitality, and spiritual alignment. Salt was their first line of defense against these occult or hidden forces. When we examine cross-cultural practices involving salt as protection, patterns emerge that suggest a universal understanding of its properties. From the salt circles of European witchcraft traditions to the salt barriers of Japanese Shinto shrines, we find salt consistently employed as a boundary marker between worlds. This boundary-creating property operates through salt's unique vibrational signature, which establishes what might be called an energetic membrane that certain frequencies cannot penetrate. The mechanics of this protection work through what could be described as vibrational incompatibility. Lower frequency energies, often experienced as heavy, draining, or intrusive, cannot maintain their coherence when encountering the highly structured crystalline pattern of salt. The geometric perfection within each salt crystal creates an energetic template that disorganizes chaotic or discordant energy patterns, rendering them ineffective. Traditional homes in many cultures maintain salt in key locations, particularly thresholds, windows, and corners, areas considered vulnerable to energetic intrusion. This practice wasn't mere superstition, but a practical application of salt's protective qualities. The salt created what modern energy workers might call a frequency fence that allowed positive influences to flow while filtering out disruptive ones. In more focused protective work, salt was often combined with specific intentions and sometimes other elements. Salt mixed with sage, cedar, or frankincense created powerful protective compounds that would be placed in small containers throughout living spaces. These mixtures worked synergistically, the salt establishing the boundary while the plant allies contributed their specific protective qualities. The effectiveness of salt protection is enhanced through conscious activation. When placing protective salt, the practitioner's intention infuses the crystals with purpose, essentially programming the salt with specific protective parameters. This is why many traditions emphasize the importance of blessing or consecrating salt before use in protection rituals. Water and salt combined create perhaps the most potent protective medium available in simple form. Salt water, whether from the ocean or mindfully prepared, carries both the fluidity of water's adaptable protection and the structured boundary making of salt. When sprinkled around a space or used to wash floors, walls, or objects, this solution creates a purified field that many sensitives describe as lighter and clearer. Some ancient texts suggest that salt's protective qualities extend beyond the material realm, creating what was sometimes called a light barrier that certain discarnate entities could not breach. This understanding appears in traditions from ancient Egypt to medieval Europe, suggesting that salt's protective qualities were observed consistently across widely separated cultures and time periods. The relationship between salt and spiritual protection is perhaps most explicitly stated in folklore surrounding crossroads, thresholds, and boundaries. Salt was routinely placed at these liminal spaces, areas considered thin points between worlds. The salt served as a sentinel, allowing beneficial exchanges while preventing intrusive energies from establishing footholds in human spaces. In the deeper esoteric traditions, salt was understood to protect not only physical spaces, but consciousness itself. By ingesting small amounts of blessed salt or carrying it on one's person, practitioners believed they strengthened their own energetic boundaries, making it more difficult for external influences to affect their thoughts, emotions, or spiritual alignment. The protective power of salt remains as relevant today as in ancient times. In our modern world, filled with electromagnetic frequencies, crowded spaces, and complex energy exchanges, salt continues to offer its simple yet profound protective qualities to those who understand its proper application. In the sacred texts and mystical traditions of humanity, few substances carry the profound symbolic weight of salt. Within the Bible alone, salt appears in contexts so significant that they reveal its status as a substance bridging the material and divine realms. Perhaps most striking is the concept of the covenant of salt, a forgotten spiritual principle of immense significance. The covenant of salt, mentioned multiple times in Scripture, represents an unbreakable, eternal agreement between the divine and humanity. In Numbers 18:19, we read, "It is a covenant of salt forever before the Lord." This extraordinary phrasing suggests that salt embodies qualities the divine considers essential to eternal bonds. Unlike other substances that decay or transform, salt remains essentially unchanged through time, a physical representation of immutability and permanence. This symbolic permanence explains why salt appears prominently in ritual contexts across traditions. When ancient peoples sealed agreements with salt, They were invoking this quality of unchangeability, essentially saying, "May this agreement be as enduring as salt itself." The preservation quality of salt, its ability to prevent decay, became a powerful metaphor for spiritual preservation, suggesting that certain sacred principles remain intact regardless of external circumstances. In the gospel teachings, humanity is referred to as the salt of the earth, a profound statement about human spiritual potential. This metaphor suggests that humans, at their essence, contain preservative qualities for truth and wisdom. Just as salt prevents corruption in food, the spiritual consciousness within humanity preserves divine knowledge through generations. Yet this same passage warns that salt can lose its savor, its essential quality, suggesting that spiritual consciousness requires vigilant maintenance. The mystical dimensions of salt extend beyond biblical contexts. In Kabbalistic traditions, salt represents the principle of severity or judgment, one of the balancing forces in creation. This understanding positions salt as a cosmic principle rather than merely a physical substance. Its crystalline structure, forming perfect cubes, reflects divine order manifesting in material form, the Platonic ideal of structure and boundary. Ancient mystery schools taught that salt contained three essential aspects of creation: fire, water, and earth, making it a complete elemental substance. The fiery nature of salt is experienced in its taste. Its connection to water is evident in how it attracts moisture. Its earthly quality appears in its solid, crystalline form. This tri-elemental nature made salt a perfect representation of the manifested universe in miniature form. In deeper esoteric teachings, salt was associated with the physical body itself. Just as salt crystallizes into form from apparent formlessness, the physical body was understood as consciousness crystallized into matter. This parallel between salt formation and incarnation reveals why salt was considered sacred. It modeled the process of spirit becoming matter. The body's own salt content was seen as evidence of this connection, with tears, sweat, and blood, all carrying the salt that sustained physical existence. The symbolic relationship between salt and wisdom appears repeatedly in spiritual literature. "Let your speech be always with grace, seasoned with salt," advises Colossians 4:6, suggesting that wisdom, like salt, should be measured carefully, neither too much nor too little. This seasoning quality of salt represents discernment and proper proportion, knowing exactly what is needed in any spiritual circumstance.
Alchemical traditions placed salt among the three essential principles of existence, alongside sulfur and mercury. In this trinity, salt represented the body or fixed principle. Sulfur represented the soul or oil. Mercury embodied the spirit or volatile aspect. Together, these three principles constituted the foundation of both material existence and spiritual transformation. The alchemist's work involved purifying and recombining these principles in perfect proportion, a process mirroring inner spiritual development. The purifying aspects of salt take on deeper significance when we understand its mystical dimensions. When ancient texts speak of being salted with fire or purified through salt, they refer not merely to physical cleansing, but to a fundamental reorganization of consciousness. Just as salt creates structure in formless water, spiritual salting brings divine order to human consciousness. Particularly revealing is salt's role in sacrifice. In Leviticus 2:13 we read, "With all your offerings you shall offer salt." This requirement ensured that all offerings carried the preservative, purifying quality that salt represents. The offering, seasoned with salt, symbolized the preservation of divine connection through the sacrificial act. This salting process transformed the physical offering into a substance capable of bridging worlds. In the deeper mystery teachings, salt represented the principle of manifestation itself, the process by which divine ideas become material reality. This understanding reveals why salt was considered essential to spiritual practice. It embodied the very principle that allows spiritual consciousness to take form in the physical world. In the profound exploration of salt's spiritual significance, we arrive at its most essential function as the mediator between physical existence and spiritual essence. This understanding transcends mere symbolism, revealing salt as the tangible bridge connecting matter and consciousness in a continuous spectrum of being. The human body contains salt in precise proportions, approximately the same concentration as the primordial oceans from which life emerged. This is not coincidental but reflects a fundamental truth about our nature. The salt in our blood, tears, and sweat carries the memory of our origins, both physical and spiritual. It is the crystallized remnant of the waters of creation, maintaining within our physical form the perfect balance needed for consciousness to inhabit matter. Ancient wisdom traditions recognize that salt within the body serves a dual purpose. On the physical level, it regulates fluid balance, nerve function, and cellular communication. On the energetic level, it stabilizes the electromagnetic field that surrounds and interpenetrates the physical body. This dual function makes salt the perfect mediator between dimensions of being, a substance that operates simultaneously in both physical and subtle realms. In the esoteric understanding, the human body contains 7 major salt centers, corresponding to what Eastern traditions call chakras. Each center maintains a specific vibrational frequency through its unique salt composition. When these centers function in harmony, they create what might be called the salt of wholeness, a perfectly balanced energetic system that allows consciousness to fully inhabit physical form without distortion. The mysteries of incarnation, how infinite consciousness takes finite form, were often explained through salt metaphors in ancient teaching. Just as salt crystallizes from water into solid form, while retaining water's essence within its structure, consciousness crystallizes into physical experience while maintaining its essential nature. This process creates what esoteric traditions call the sacred vessel, a body capable of containing and expressing spiritual consciousness. In deeper mystical teachings, the body itself was sometimes referred to as the salt of the soul. This profound metaphor suggests that the physical form preserves and gives structure to the soul's expressions, just as salt preserves and gives structure to food. Without this salting process, spiritual essence would remain formless and unexpressed in the material world. The transformation processes of spiritual development were often described in terms of salt purification. The biblical phrase salted with fire refers to the alchemical process whereby consciousness, embodied in salt, the physical form, undergoes purification through the fire of spiritual awareness. This purification doesn't reject the physical, but transforms it into a more perfect vehicle for divine expression. Understanding this link between salt, body, and soul reveals why ancient healing traditions placed such emphasis on salt balance. When the body's salt composition becomes distorted, either deficient or excessive, the connection between physical and spiritual aspects weakens. Modern medicine recognizes the physical consequences of electrolyte imbalance, but ancient healers understood its spiritual implications as well, a disruption in the body's ability to fully express consciousness. Cayce's readings frequently addressed this connection, suggesting specific salt treatments to restore proper alignment between physical and spiritual dimensions. These treatments weren't merely addressing physical symptoms, but realigning the entire system to allow greater spiritual expression. His understanding of salt's role as mediator between dimensions informed treatments that worked simultaneously on multiple levels of being. The ancient practice of salt covenants takes on deeper significance when viewed through this lens. When people shared salt together, they weren't simply preserving an agreement, but acknowledging their shared embodiment, the sacred salt vessel that each person carried. This recognition created bonds that transcended ordinary relationships, acknowledging the divine presence within the salt of human form.
In contemplative traditions, meditation on salt was used to develop awareness of the body-soul connection. By visualizing the salt within the physical form, practitioners could sense its crystalline perfection and the consciousness it contained. This practice developed awareness of how spiritual essence inhabits physical form through the mediating principle that salt represents. The mystical understanding of salt explains why it features so prominently in transition rituals across cultures. Birth, initiation, marriage, and death, major transitions in consciousness, typically involved salt, acknowledging its role in mediating between states of being. Salt facilitated these passages by maintaining coherence as consciousness shifted from one expression to another. Perhaps most profound is the understanding that salt represents consciousness in its first manifestation from formlessness into form. Before thought, before identity, before individual expression, salt embodies the primary structure through which infinite potential takes specific shape. This makes salt not merely symbolic, but functionally sacred, a substance that demonstrates the first movement from unity to multiplicity. In practical spiritual work, this understanding of salt as the bridge between body and soul suggests that proper salt balance, physically, energetically, and symbolically, creates the optimal condition for spiritual realization. When the salt vessel is properly prepared and maintained, it becomes transparent to the light of consciousness, allowing divine awareness to fully illuminate physical existence. This integration of body and soul through the medium of salt represents the highest purpose of spiritual practice, not to transcend physical existence, but to transform it into a perfect expression of divine consciousness. The salt of the earth becomes the light of the world when the mediating function of salt is fully realized in human experience. In this understanding, we find the deepest meaning of purification, not the rejection of physical existence, but its perfection as a vehicle for spiritual expression. The ancient salt rituals, properly understood, guide us toward this integration, where body and soul exist not as separate aspects, but as perfect expressions of unified being. If these ancient salt teachings have resonated with your spirit, there is a reason. The wisdom of our ancestors calls to something deep within you that recognizes truth beyond intellectual understanding. Subscribe now to continue this journey of spiritual rediscovery. Each week, we unveil forgotten knowledge that connects you to the sacred traditions our modern world has nearly lost. Share your experiences with salt rituals in the comments below. How has this element transformed your spiritual practice? Your insights may be exactly what another seeker needs to hear today. The path of wisdom is not walked alone. Join our community of spiritual explorers as we rediscover the sacred in the seemingly ordinary.